Okay, so let us begin by setting up our project. We are going to be using Unity version 2018.3. You should have at least that version because that is the one that introduced the new prefab workflow, which makes life a lot easier. As you can see, I started out this game when I didn't have that version, so that was definitely the last time I used anything below that. If you don't have it, if you don't have that, it's not a big problem. But yeah, you should do yourself a favor, have at least this one. So project name, whatever you want. Template, we are going to be using 2D and save it wherever you want. So let's hit create project. First things first, let's make a few folders to keep everything nice in order. So create an empty folder. Call this one sprites. Control D, we're going to duplicate it twice and name this one prefabs. And the third one is going to be called scripts. Let's make a sprite for our light. So go into this folder, right click, create sprites, circle, call it circle, that's a pretty good description. Take it and drag it into the scene so it becomes a game object, which we're going to rename to light. Now it should have a script on it. So let's create one. Right click, create, C# script. And we're going to call this one light movement. Select the light game object once Unity finishes saving. Drag it onto there. And now we can take this one and drag it into the prefabs folder. And now it's a prefab. Okay, so let's write our first script. Open up the light movement script. In here we are going to be moving by a function called move towards. I'm going to make this private void and say move towards. Call it next waypoint. And in this function we are going to say transform.position equals vector2 dot move towards. This one needs as you can see, the current position, which is our transform.position. It needs a target, which we don't have, so let's make one. Let's say vector2, private vector2, and call it next waypoint. That is our goal. Next waypoint. And now it's asking for a distance. So for that we're going to be using time.fixedDeltaTime. That is because we're going to trigger that function in fixedUpdate. And we're doing that because we want everything nicely synchronized, have nothing come in between, because we are going to have obstacles as well. And we want to make sure that every time we repeat the path, they're going to run into each other at the same point, the same time. And fixed update is a good way to do that because it runs, as the name suggests, at a very fixed time interval. You can change that in the settings, but the one that's set in is working quite nicely. And in here, since we're here right now, we can also add a speed variable. So let's serialize it. So you can play around with it in the inspector. Call it speed. And simply say times speed. Okay. So now we need to call that function. And to have better control over it, let's make a rule called, is moving. And we're going to say if is moving, then we're going to call that function. Okay. Now we actually need to set our next waypoint. So in here we're going to make two functions actually. You might be wondering why we make a new function for every single line, but later on we're going to extend those functions, and it's just a good practice to keep those separated right away. So one is going to be called set next waypoint. Set next waypoint. There we're going to set our next waypoint. And we're going to do that by creating our waypoint. So let's say private. Actually, when we are creating it, we want to return a vector2. So let's say this private vector2 create waypoint. This one is going to take a few parameters. Oh, actually, let me make the script a bit bigger, the text. So, like so. And what we need is a origin, so a vector2, from which point on we're going to create our new waypoint. Call it origin. And we can do it right away. Say a range, meaning how far from this origin should we create our new waypoint. So let's make a local variable. Vector2 is going to be called random dot inside unit circle. We should also name it. Vector2 next. No, let's call it new waypoint. Sorry. New waypoint equals random dot inside unit circle. So this one refers to unit, meaning one unit to unit, which is the, as you can see, this square here. So that is the range. As you've seen, we made our own range, so we can just say multiplied by range. And then we're also going to add our origin, like so. So basically what it does now, it's based from our origin, and it's going to make a, it's just going to choose any point that's inside that unit circle, return a new waypoint. So when we set our next waypoint, we're just going to say next waypoint equals create a waypoint. And it's asking for the parameters. Okay, and here we had the serialized field float. Let's just add range to it. And origin, we are going to take transform.position. And for range, we're going to pass in our range variable. And now we have to start all this up. So let's say in start. First, we're going to set the waypoint. Yes. So like so, we're going to say set next waypoint equals. No, sorry, we're just going to trigger it, which is going to set the next waypoint based on where we are. And then we're going to say is moving equals true. So we're going to have a waypoint. We would say true. This one is getting triggered every fixed update, and we're moving towards that. And now we also want to do something when we're actually there, which is we want to have a new one. So we're going to say if transform.position equals our next waypoint, and it's going to throw an error because transform.position is a vector 3, next waypoint is a vector 2, but we can implicitly convert it, so we're just going to cast it like so, and it's just going to leave out the z value. And when that happens, what we want is we want to have a new waypoint. So we're just going to set it, and it's going to create one. And we can also, right away, we don't need it yet, but we can make a path. Let's serialize it so you can see it. And we're going to say private list vector2. A list, it's dynamic, so we can keep adding things. We're going to call it path. And I'm only going to serialize it so you can easily see it in the inspector without having to go into debug mode. It's not necessary for the functionality. And now every time we're going to create a waypoint, we're actually going to add it to our path. Path.add new waypoint. So the next time we can repeat. Okay, so yeah, let's try that function out. Hopefully it's going to work. Okay, let's try that out. Speed is 1 and range is also going to be 1. Meaning since we're using the unit circle, it's going to use basically the side of the square. It's going to be the radius. So when we're here, it should be anything between here, 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 and here. Yeah. Let's hit play. And it's moving. And you can also see that it hopefully, yeah, it's going to add each point it creates to our path. So let's repeat that path. Okay, so first of all, we need a way to trigger that. And instead of start, we are going to call this start moving. And now we need a way to trigger that. So let's just say here an update. We're going to say if input dot get key down key code, let's say space, we're going to trigger start moving. And now we also need a way to keep track of where we are in our path, and that is going to be an integer, and we're going to call it step. And the thing is, now when we set our next waypoint, we want to see if we actually have a path. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if step is smaller than path.count, then our next waypoint is simply going to be the element number step of our path. And otherwise we're going to create a waypoint. And now of course we need to increase our step. I actually made it in here. Say step plus plus. And when we start moving, our step is going to be -1. So a quick example. We start moving, step is -1, we're going to set a waypoint. Steps getting increased. Now it is 0, and we're checking 0, and the first time our path is empty. So, well, it's obviously 0. 0 is not smaller than 0, so we're going to create a waypoint. When we create that waypoint, we're actually going to add that to our path. So count is 1, next time it gets triggered. Obviously 1 is not smaller than 1, and we just keep creating waypoints. And then the second time we might have 2 inside our path already. And so it's just going in here, and it's first time it's going to say 0 smaller than 2, that is true. So let's just use the waypoint of the first element of our path. So it's going to repeat it. I hope that's clear, and yeah, save the script. And I think to see it a little bit better, oh, I forgot, sorry. We have to make sure that we start from the same point. So let's make a variable to keep that in mind. Say start position, and in awake we're going to say start position equals transform dot position. And when we start moving, we are going to say our position is supposed to be where we started the first time. Not transform, but transform dot position. And we could also, let's just, as I mentioned before, I said serialized field is not needed in terms of functionality. Thing is, what happens now, the inspector is initializing the array. If you remove that, it's going to give you an error because it's not initialized. And so just in case, we're going to say path equals new list vector2. Oh, sorry. So now that list is initialized either way. Okay, now save it and let's try it out. We had 3 lights now, so put them in different directions. I'm going to hit play. And I'm going to hit space. And I'm going to hit space again and again. And you can see that looks pretty much like they're repeating their path. Okay, that's it for the first video. In the next one, I'm going to show you how to make the gate that's going to spawn a lot of lights. And then this one's going to sort the lights. So we need to make a goal, and yeah, you might even make the mutation, or maybe in the video after. I hope you liked the video. Please hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment, questions, criticism, everything is welcome. Okay, see you next time.